The transport shuttle carrying Ambassador Marcus Webb descended through layers of shimmering energy shields that protected the Galactic Council headquarters. Through the viewport, Marcus could see the massive structure floating in space like a crystallized star. Thousands of ships from hundreds of worlds surrounded it, each representing civilizations that had mastered interstellar travel long before humans discovered fire. Marcus felt the weight of 3 billion people pressing down on his shoulders. Earth's entire future depended on what happened in the next few hours. The shuttle docked with barely a whisper. The airlock opened, revealing a corridor that stretched impossibly far, its walls made of some material that seemed both solid and liquid, shifting with colors Marcus had no names for. Alien beings moved through the space, some walking, some floating, others using methods of locomotion that defied physics as humans understood it. A reptilian creature approached, its scales reflecting light like polished emeralds. Ambassador Webb of Earth, follow me to the judgment chamber. The council is waiting. Marcus straightened his uniform and walked forward. Each step took him deeper into the heart of galactic civilization, past chambers where beings argued in languages that sounded like music, mathematics, and whale song all at once. He passed gardens that grew crystalline plants under artificial suns, libraries where knowledge floated in streams of pure light, and meditation chambers where ancient beings contemplated mysteries that predated human existence. The judgment chamber doors opened like the mouth of some vast creature. Inside, the space expanded beyond reason. Tiered galleries rose in all directions, filled with representatives from species Marcus couldn't begin to count. At the center floated a throne of crystallized thought, where Prelate Sorn presided over galactic law. Marcus was directed to a circle at the chamber's heart. As he stepped into it, holographic barriers materialized around him, isolating him from the assembled masses. He stood alone, surrounded by the accumulated power of thousands of worlds. The council recognizes Ambassador Marcus Webb of Earth. Prelate Sorn's voice resonated through every molecule of air. You stand before us to answer charges brought by the Corthan Empire. Do you understand the gravity of your situation? I do, Prelate, Marcus replied, keeping his voice steady. A massive being of stone and metal rose from one of the lower tiers. Counselor Graf of Korthos Prime, his voice like grinding boulders. 3 weeks ago, a human soldier participated in what you called basic training exercises with our military forces. This human killed 12 of our finest warriors, using only a wooden practice blade. Murmurs rippled through the assembled delegates. Marcus noticed the mix of reactions. Some species seemed curious, others angry, and a few looked genuinely frightened. Correction, Counselor, Marcus said carefully. Private James Rourke disarmed 12 warriors. No one was killed. The exercise used non-lethal training implements. A serpentine being with a flaring hood hissed from another tier. Counselor K. Thara of the Voss Dominion. Semantics, Ambassador. Your soldier demonstrated combat capabilities far beyond what humanity claimed to possess. We approved his participation as an observer, not as someone who could humiliate warriors who have trained for decades. The holographic display above the chamber flickered to life. Marcus watched footage he had seen hundreds of times, but seeing it projected here, surrounded by alien civilizations, made it feel different. More dangerous. The recording showed a simple training arena. 12 Corthan shock troopers, each twice the size of a human, advanced in perfect formation. They carried wooden practice blades, weapons used to teach their young the fundamentals of combat. In the center stood Private James Rourke, a 23-year-old logistics specialist from Nebraska. Holding an identical wooden blade, what happened next had brought humanity to this moment. Rourke moved like water, finding paths through rock. The first trooper's weapon spun away before the alien realized he'd been touched. The second and third fell in a coordinated motion, that seemed to defy the laws of momentum. The remaining 9 tried to adjust, but Rourke was already inside their formation, exploiting gaps they didn't know existed. 17 seconds. That's how long it took one human to disarm 12 of the galaxy's most feared warriors. The chamber erupted in discussion. Delegates shouted in languages human translators struggled to process. Some voices sounded angry, others amazed, a few terrified. "This is why we demanded this hearing." Cathara's voice cut through the noise. "Humanity has been deceptive about their true capabilities. This Private Rourke is clearly an enhanced soldier, possibly cybernetically modified or genetically altered. The Vast Dominion believes Earth sent a spy to assess our military weaknesses." Marcus had prepared for this accusation. Private Rourke underwent complete medical scanning before and after the exercise. The results were provided to this council. He has no enhancements, no modifications, no cybernetics. He is a physiologically average human male. "Then your entire species represents a threat," Cathara declared. "If an average human can defeat our finest warriors, what could your trained soldiers accomplish?" The Vast Dominion moves for immediate quarantine of the Sol system until humanity can be properly evaluated and contained. The word "contained" hung in the air like a death sentence. Marcus felt his carefully prepared diplomatic responses crumbling. Quarantine meant Earth would be cut off from the galaxy, imprisoned in their own solar system, prevented from exploring or growing or reaching the stars humanity had dreamed of for generations. Seconded, Grath's voice rumbled like an earthquake. Marcus had run every scenario, consulted with Earth's best minds, studied galactic law for months. But standing here, watching humanity's first contact spiral toward imprisonment, he realized careful diplomacy wouldn't save them. Sometimes survival required gambling everything on a single bold move. "I invoke the right of contest." The chamber fell silent. Even the ambient hum of translation systems seemed to pause. Thousands of alien eyes turned toward the human standing alone in his circle. Cathara Hood retracted slightly. "Ambassador, you cannot be serious. The right of contest hasn't been invoked in 4 centuries. It's a relic from barbaric times. Yet it remains council law," Marcus said, his voice carrying clearly through the vast space. "I've read the statutes. Any species facing quarantine or subjugation may demand a contest of capability to prove their worthiness as equals rather than subjects. Holographic displays erupted around the chamber as legal. Systems verified his claim. Marcus watched alien faces shift from contempt to calculation. He'd surprised them, and in galactic politics, surprise was either a weapon or a suicide note. "The human speaks accurately," Prelat Sorn announced after a moment. "The right of contest stands in council law. Ambassador Webb, do you comprehend what you're requesting?" "I do, Prelate. Humanity requests the opportunity to demonstrate our capabilities in fair combat against council representatives. If we succeed, Earth gains full membership status. If we fail, humanity submits to permanent council oversight." Cathara's eyes gleamed with something predatory. "You understand that failure means your species becomes a protectorate, subject to our laws, our restrictions, our control over your technological development, your exploration rights, your very civilization. Better than immediate quarantine without any chance to prove ourselves," Marcus countered. Grath leaned forward, his massive shadow falling across Marcus's circle. "You realize the contest won't be like that training exercise. We'll send true warriors, battle-tested veterans from species that have waged war across the galaxy for thousands of years. Your Private Rourke embarrassed some shock troopers. That won't help him against what we'll field. I'm counting on it, Counselor." Prelate Sorn's throne pulsed with deep blue light. "The Council recognizes the invocation. The contest of capability shall commence in 3 cycles. Terms are set. Humanity will face 12 opponents in succession. Victory requires disarming or incapacitating all 12 without lethal force. And humanity's champion? Cathara asked, though her tone suggested she already knew. Marcus activated his communicator. The holographic display shifted to show the holding area beneath the chamber. Private James Rourke stood at attention, wearing a simple military uniform. In his hands, he held a practice blade identical to the one that had started this crisis. "Our logistics specialist," Marcus said simply. The chamber exploded in chaos. Some delegates laughed, assuming humanity had chosen foolishly. Others fell silent, remembering the footage of that farm boy from Nebraska who moved like physics was negotiable. Cathara's hood flared wide. "This is your champion? The same soldier who caused this incident? You're either supremely confident or spectacularly foolish." "Maybe both," Marcus admitted. "But Private Rourke has one quality that matters more than experience or enhancements." "What quality?" Marcus looked at the hologram of his young soldier, then back at the assembled might of the Galactic Council. "He's human, and humans have a particular relationship with impossible situations. We tend to solve them." Prelate Sorn raised a crystalline appendage. "The terms are set. 3 cycles until the contest begins. This council stands in recess." As delegates filed out, Grath approached. His stone features were unreadable, but something in his posture suggested respect rather than hostility. "Ambassador Webb, a word of warning. Whatever you think your species is capable of, remember this. The galaxy is vast and ancient and cruel. It has broken species more advanced than yours. It has crushed civilizations that thought themselves invincible." Marcus met the warrior's gaze without flinching. "Counselor Grath, a word from Earth's history. We're the species that looked at the vacuum of space and decided we belonged there. We're descendants of predators who hunted prey across continents by refusing to stop. We turned deserts into gardens and split atoms to light our cities. We've broken ourselves 1,000 times and rebuilt stronger each time." He gestured toward Rourke's hologram. "That's one human with a stick. Imagine what we'll become when the galaxy gives us a reason to evolve." Grath studied him for a long moment. "Then I hope your species knows when to show mercy, Ambassador. The galaxy has enough monsters. We don't need humanity to become another one." As the Korthan left, Marcus stood alone in the empty judgment chamber. The lights had dimmed, leaving only the faint glow of Rourke's hologram. 3 cycles. 72 hours to prepare for a fight that would determine whether humanity joined the stars as equals or spent eternity in a cage. Marcus opened a secure channel to Earth Command. "It's done. We're committed. Prepare contingency protocols. If Rourke fails, we'll need to implement emergency measures before the quarantine takes effect." Colonel Rita Hayes' voice came through the link. "Understood, Ambassador. For what it's worth, I think you made the right call. At least this way, we go down fighting." "We're not going down at all, Colonel. We're going to win." "You really believe that?" Marcus looked at the practice blade in Rourke's hands. A piece of wood that had humiliated the galaxy's finest warriors. "I believe humanity didn't crawl from caves and cross oceans and reach the stars just to bow before anyone. We're not built for submission. We're built for survival. If the galaxy wants to test that, let them come." Private James Rourke sat cross-legged in the meditation chamber beneath the council station, the practice blade resting across his knees. The walls absorbed sound so completely he could hear his own heartbeat, slow and steady, despite everything at stake. The door opened. Ambassador Webb entered, his face showing the strain of the past few hours. "You should be training," Webb said. "I am training," Rourke replied without opening his eyes. My grandfather taught me that most fights are won before the first blow. It's about understanding your opponent and yourself. Webb settled into a chair that adjusted to his human form. Your grandfather was a soldier? Farmer. But he grew up in a war zone. Learned to survive by paying attention. Rourke opened his eyes. He told me once that the strongest weapon isn't in your hand. It's in your enemy's assumptions. Smart man. Webb pulled up holographic profiles. Speaking of assumptions, we need to discuss what you're facing. The Council is sending their best. 12 faces appeared between them. Each looked more dangerous than the last. First up, a Vortian duelist. They're crystalline beings who can shift their density at will. Nearly unbreakable on defense, razor-sharp on offense. They've been perfecting their martial arts for 6,000 years. Rourke studied the image with genuine interest. What do they assume about combat? Webb blinked. What do you mean? Every martial art is built on assumptions. What does a species that can turn their skin into diamond assume about fighting? That superior defense equals victory. They outlast opponents until exhaustion creates an opening. Then, they've never fought someone who doesn't get tired the same way. Rourke traced invisible patterns in the air. Human endurance evolved for persistence hunting. We don't burst like sprinters. We maintain. If they're waiting for me to exhaust myself, they'll wait a long time. Webb felt something shift in his understanding of the young soldier. You're not worried? I'm terrified. But fear is just information. It tells me where the real dangers are. Rourke gestured to the next profile. Who else? Talaxian Berserker. They enter a neurochemical rage state that increases their strength 5-fold and eliminates pain response. Once activated, they don't stop until their opponent is destroyed. Rourke nodded slowly. They assume overwhelming force breaks resistance. What's their society like? Hierarchical. Dominance through strength. Because a berserker is just someone who's learned that aggression solves problems. But aggression has patterns, especially if it's culturally reinforced. They'll expect me to retreat or match their force. What if I do neither? You're talking about redirecting their momentum. I'm talking about using their assumptions against them. A berserker assumes their opponent will react with fear or violence. If I react with precision instead, their own force becomes their weakness. Webb cycled through the remaining profiles. Rourke didn't ask about weapons or physical weaknesses. He asked about culture, psychology, evolutionary pressures. He was building a map, not of bodies, but of minds. You're not planning to fight them, Webb realized. You're planning to make them fight themselves. Rourke picked up the practice blade, feeling its balance. This is wood, Ambassador. No cutting edge, no armor-piercing capability, no advanced technology. Against any of these opponents in a direct contest of strength, I'd lose immediately. He stood, moving through a slow form. The blade seemed to bend space around it. But this blade is also a lever, a fulcrum, an extension of reach. In the right hands, it becomes possibility. The movements made Webb's eyes lose focus at critical moments. How are you doing that? Humans evolved as pursuit predators on a world with dozens of apex species. We're not the strongest or fastest or most durable, but we're adaptable. We learn patterns, exploit weaknesses, use tools in ways they weren't designed for. Rourke stopped, the blade perfectly still. Every species in the galaxy evolved for their world-specific challenges. They became specialists. We became generalists who could become specialists in anything. That's what you're counting on? Adaptability? I'm counting on them underestimating what adaptability means in combat. They've fought warriors and weapons masters. But they've never fought a human who understands that every opponent is a puzzle with a solution. The door opened again. Colonel Hayes entered. her military bearing sharp and focused. Updates on the opponent roster. Council just finalized the list. She displayed 12 fighters from 12 species. Representatives from the Vos Dominion and Korthos Prime included. They're not holding back. Good, Rourke said simply. Hayes raised an eyebrow. Good? Private, these are species that have been waging war since before humans discovered fire. The Korthan representative alone has 300 years of combat experience. Then he'll have 300 years of habits and assumptions. That's his weakness. You're talking about predictability. But these aren't machines. They're trained warriors who can adapt. Adaptation takes time, especially when you're fighting against your own training. They'll start with what they know. By the time they realize they need to adjust, the fight will be over. Hayes pulled up footage from the training incident. Walk me through what you were thinking during this. Rourke watched his own performance with detached interest. They approached in standard shock trooper formation. 3 lines of 4, staggered for mutual support. Beautiful textbook execution, which meant they drilled it thousands of times. Muscle memory that deep becomes instinctive, almost impossible to override. The video showed him moving toward the first trooper. I targeted the formation's anchor points first. When the first soldier lost his weapon, the others automatically adjusted to fill the gap, exactly as trained. But that adjustment pulled them half a step out of optimal position. Not enough to notice consciously, but enough to create openings. He pointed to where 2 troopers fell simultaneously. See there? They're compensating while trying to maintain formation integrity. Their training says close ranks, but tactics say spread out against a single opponent. The conflict between training and assessment created a split-second hesitation. That's all I needed. Webb watched with new understanding. What had looked like impossible speed now revealed itself as perfect timing. Exploiting micro-adjustments that most beings wouldn't perceive, you're fighting their training as much as them. Their training is who they are in combat, especially for species with long lifespans. Humans retrain constantly because we only have decades to master skills. We're used to adapting, updating, changing approaches. But a warrior who's used the same techniques for centuries, they don't just use those techniques. They become them. Hayes closed the footage. Private, do you believe you can win this? Rourke set down the blade and looked at both of them directly. I believe the galaxy has been fighting the same way for thousands of years. Species develop martial traditions over millennia, refining them into perfect expressions of their physiology and culture. What they've created is incredible. He picked the blade back up, but optimization can become ossification. Perfection can become rigidity. They've spent millennia perfecting answers to known challenges. They've never faced something like humanity. A species with no established tradition, no ancient techniques, nothing except the ability to learn and apply patterns from completely unrelated contexts. That's not an answer, Webb said. Yes, it is. You asked if I can win. I'm telling you that winning against 12 sup. Eerier opponents with a wooden stick requires redefining what combat means. They think this is a test of martial prowess. I think it's a test of whose assumptions are correct. And if their assumptions are correct, Rourke smiled for the first time. Then we learn, we adapt, and we come back stronger. That's what humans do. But Ambassador Webb didn't invoke the right of contest thinking we'd lose. He understood something the Council doesn't. What's that? That humanity's greatest weapon has never been strength or speed or technology. It's our refusal to accept that any challenge is truly impossible. We've been solving impossible problems since we made fire. This is just one more. Webb felt hope mixed with fear, mixed with pride. He'd chosen Rourke because the young soldier had embarrassed Korthan troopers. But now he understood that moment hadn't been luck. It had been a demonstration of human problem-solving applied to combat. The contest begins in 22 hours, Hayes said. How do you want to spend that time? Rourke sat back down, returning to his meditation posture. Like this, understanding myself as completely as I'm trying to understand them. My grandfather used to say you can't control your opponent, only your own response. So I need to know my responses so well they become automatic. Then I can be present in the moment, adapting in real time. That sounds like their training, Webb observed. The difference is, their training is specific to techniques and forms. Mine is about maintaining adaptive capacity under pressure. They're teaching their bodies what to do. I'm teaching my mind how to remain open to possibility. Hayes and Webb exchanged glances, then nodded. We'll leave you to it, Webb said. But Rourke, whatever happens tomorrow, Earth is proud of you. You volunteered knowing the risks. With respect, Ambassador, I didn't volunteer because I'm brave. I volunteered because I'm curious. Rourke's eyes opened, bright with genuine interest. The galaxy has been fighting for thousands of years. They've developed incredible martial traditions. Tomorrow, I get to learn from the best warriors in known space. Win or lose, that's an opportunity very few humans will ever have. As they left him alone, Webb turned to Hayes in the corridor. Colonel, be honest. What are our chances? Hayes was quiet for a long moment. I've reviewed every piece of footage we have on Rourke. His combat assessments, training scores, psychological profile. You want to know what stands out? What? He's never lost a fight. Not because he's never been beaten. He has dozens of times in training. But because he's never thought of a loss as a failure. Every defeat is just data. Most warriors fight to win. Rourke fights to learn. That makes him either the perfect champion or completely insane. Which do you think he is? Hayes smiled grimly. Both, which is exactly what we need. They walked toward the diplomatic quarters, leaving the young soldier alone with his thoughts and his practice blade Dot in the meditation chamber. James Rourke sat in perfect stillness, his mind running through scenarios and possibilities. Tomorrow, he would face the finest warriors the galaxy could field. Tomorrow, he would carry the hopes of his entire species into an arena designed to humble pretenders. Tomorrow, he would show the universe what happened when you gave a human a practice blade and asked them to make the impossible real. But tonight, he simply breathed and centered himself. The practice blade rested across his knees. Silent and unassuming Dot, just a piece of wood Dot, just a lever waiting for the right. Fulcrum Dot, just humanity's answer to the galaxies. Challenge Dot, the contest arena was a perfect sphere 300 meters across. Its walls made of adaptive matter that could simulate any environment. Today, the Council had configured it as neutral ground. Standard gravity, breathable atmosphere, smooth floor. No advantages, no disadvantages. Pure skill would decide the outcome. Rourke stepped through the entrance portal, practice blade in hand. The roar of 50,000 alien voices hit him like a physical wave. Beings from across the galaxy had gathered to witness this moment, their sounds creating a symphony of anticipation and judgment. Dot, in the observation galleries, Ambassador Webb stood among the human delegation. Beside him, Colonel Haas monitored tactical feeds, her expression carved from stone. He looks calm, a junior diplomat whispered. He's terrified, Hayes replied. But he's learned to function through fear. That's what makes him dangerous. 12 warriors waited on the opposite side. Rourke scanned them methodically. The Vortian duelist stood like a living statue, their crystalline form refracting light into rainbows. The Talaxian berserker paced with barely contained rage. The Corthan shock trooper stood at parade rest, 300 years of experience evident in every controlled movement. 9 others completed the roster. each one a champion. Each one capable of ending this contest in seconds if Rourke made a single mistake. Prelate Sorn's voice resonated through the arena. The contest of capability shall now commence. Terms are set and witnessed. Humanity's champion must disarm or incapacitate all 12 opponents without lethal force. Failure results in Earth's submission to Council Protectorate status. Success grants humanity full membership. The prelate paused. Let it be known that this council does not desire subjugation. We seek only to protect the stability of all civilized species. If humanity proves worthy of standing as equals, let this contest demonstrate that truth. Begin. The first opponent stepped forward. The Vortian duelist, their weapon identical to Rourke's wooden blade. But their entire body was a weapon, capable of shifting from airlight to diamond hard in fractions of a second. I am Crystalline Singer of Seventh Harmonies, the Vortian announced, their voice like wind chimes. I have studied the blade for 6 millennia. You are skilled for a short-lived species human, but skill is nothing against perfection refined across ages. Rourke bowed respectfully. Thank you for the opportunity to learn from you. The Vortian's form flickered with surprise. Most opponents offered challenges or boasts. This human sounded sincere. They began to circle. Rourke immediately noticed the mathematical precision of the Vortian's movements. Each step calculated for optimal positioning. 6,000 years of training had produced movements that approached algorithmic perfection, which meant they were predictable. Crystalline Singer struck first, their blade moving at impossible speeds. But Rourke had already calculated the angle based on their stance. He wasn't where the blade arrived. The Vortian adjusted, flowing into a secondary strike, then a third. Complex combinations that had defeated opponents for centuries. Rourke responded to none of them. He simply wasn't present at the points of impact, his body shifting with minimal movement. Each dodge requiring the least energy while creating maximum positional advantage. In the galleries, Webb leaned forward. He's not fighting back. He's learning, Hayes corrected. Watch the Vortian. Their increasing tempo, trying to force an error. But Rourke remained elusive, his movements economical and precise. The Vortian's strikes grew faster, more complex, beautiful in their deadly geometry. Then Rourke saw it. The infinitesimal pause between the 7th and 8th strikes, a breath of hesitation so small it existed for barely a tenth of a second. Built into the form itself, a momentary reset where the Vortian shifted their density distribution. Rourke's blade moved for the first time, not striking at the Vortian, but intercepting their weapon at the precise instant of the density shift. The angle was perfect, the timing absolute. The Vortian's blade twisted from their grip with impossible ease. The weapon clattered to the floor. Crystalline Singer stood frozen, their form flickering with disbelief. 6,000 years of training, defeated in less than 2 minutes. How? They whispered. Your form is perfect, Rourke said quietly, already turning to the next opponent. That's why it works. But perfection is a closed system. There's no room for the unexpected. The second opponent approached. The Talaxian berserker, already beginning their rage transformation. Their skin flushed deep crimson, muscles swelling with neurochemical enhancement. I am Bloodstorm. The berserker roared. I will crush your bones. And Rourke walked directly toward them. The unexpected approach broke Bloodstorm's prepared challenge. Berserkers relied on intimidation preceding violence. This human was doing neither fleeing nor bracing. Bloodstorm charged, their enhanced strength propelling them forward like a missile. Their practiced blades swung in a devastating overhead strike that would have pulverized stone. Rourke stepped inside the arc, too close for the blade to reach him, and placed his own weapon against Bloodstorm's lead foot. Barely a touch. But it came at the exact moment when the berserker's weight was transitioning. Their momentum committed. Physics did the rest. Bloodstorm's foot caught on the obstacle. Their own tremendous strength became a liability. They crashed to the floor with earth-shaking force, their blade flying away as they tried to break their fall. Rourke was already moving toward the third opponent before Bloodstorm processed what had happened. In the galleries, Counselor K. Tharas Hood flared wide. This is impossible. The human isn't fighting them. He's making them defeat themselves. Exactly as he did with our shock troopers, Grath rumbled. But that was against one species. These are warriors from 12 different evolutionary lines. And he's adapting to each one in real time, Webb said loud enough for nearby counselors to hear. That's what humans do. We recognize patterns, find exploitable elements, and apply solutions from contexts that have nothing to do with the original problem. The third opponent was a Vrex shadow dancer, capable of limited temporal displacement that made them appear in 7 locations simultaneously. They attacked from 7 angles at once. Rourke closed his eyes. The galleries gasped. Facing a multi-phase opponent without visual tracking was suicide. But Rourke wasn't tracking with his eyes. He was listening to air displacement, feeling subtle pressure changes as the Vrex moved through temporal phases. Humans had evolved where predators attacked from ambush. Survival meant developing every sense. His blade moved in a pattern that seemed random but was calculated to intersect with the only version of the Vrex fully phase-locked to the primary timeline. The other 6 were echoes without true physical presence. The Vrex's blade clattered away. You sensed me through the temporal membrane? I listened for which version of you was disturbing the air, Rourke replied, opening his eyes. The others were perfect copies, but they didn't breathe. 4 down. 8 remaining. The fights continued in rapid succession. A Drell gravity weaver who increased local gravity 3-fold, not realizing humans had evolved on a high-gravity world. A Sarkin blade master with 4 arms who couldn't resist. An honorable opening that tradition demanded they take. A Korthic spear user whose reach meant nothing against someone who understood leverage. 6, 7, 8. They fell to a human who refused to fight their fight, who instead made each opponent face the contradictions in their own perfect techniques. The 9th opponent was a Quellen precognitive who could see several seconds into the future. They had never been disarmed because they perceived every attack before it began. Rourke faced them and stood, completely still. The Quellen extended there. Precognitive sense, searching for Rourke's intended attack. But there was nothing. No planned strike, no tactical decision, no predetermined movement. The human's mind was perfectly empty. You're not planning anything, the Quellen said, confused. I'm being present. Planning is thinking about the future. But you can see the future. So I'm choosing to exist only in the now. The Quellen hesitated, their greatest advantage suddenly useless. In that moment of confusion, Rourke moved. Not from planning, but from pure reactive instinct, his body responding. Before his conscious mind registered the opportunity. 9 down. The 10th was a Jarkin warrior monk who had achieved perfect unity of mind and body. They engaged in a dance of blade and counterpoint that resembled meditation more than combat. It ended when Rourke deliberately dropped his guard in a way that looked like exhaustion, but was calculated invitation. The Jarkin's centuries of experience saw the opening and took it instinctively. But Rourke had counted on that instinct, had shaped the entire flow to make that particular opening irresistible at that exact moment. 10 down. The 11th was a Kree crystalline intellect who could process combat calculations faster than supercomputers. Rourke smiled at them and began moving randomly, not with any tactical purpose, just whim and impulse, divorced from strategic thinking. The Kree's analytical capabilities meant nothing against true randomness. 11 down. 1 remained. War leader Thrak stepped forward. 300 years of warfare, commander of legions, champion of a species that had conquered 17 star systems through military might. Private Rourke, Thrak said, his voice carrying centuries of weight. I am War Leader Thrak. I have fought in battles that would break your civilization. I have defeated opponents you cannot imagine. And I have studied your every move today. Rourke nodded respectfully. I learned from our first encounter, War Leader. Your shock troopers taught me about formation tactics. I hope I can honor their training today. Thrak's expression softened slightly. You are humble in victory. That is rare. But humility will not save you now. I have watched you defeat 11 opponents by exploiting their assumptions. I am aware of this strategy. I will not fall to it. They began to circle. Rourke immediately noticed the difference. Thrak moved with controlled unpredictability, shifting stances, never settling into a pattern. 300 years had taught him exactly how to counter an opponent like Rourke. This was the real test. Thrak struck first, a probing attack that shifted mid-strike into 3 different possible conclusions. Rourke had to commit to a defense, and the instant he did, Thrak exploited the opening. Rourke's blade nearly flew from his hands. He recovered, but barely. The fight intensified. Thrak pressed the advantage, his strikes coming from angles that seemed to violate geometry. This wasn't a warrior relying on a single technique. This was a living weapon refined across centuries, capable of learning in real time. Rourke gave ground, his movements defensive. He was learning, analyzing, but Thrak wasn't giving him time. The Korthan had watched 11 opponents fall. He knew hesitation meant defeat. The blades clashed again and again, sound echoing through silent arena. 50,000 beings held their breath. Then Rourke stopped retreating. He didn't advance. He didn't counterattack. He simply stood his ground and began matching Thrak's unpredictability with his own. Every strike was met not with practiced defense, but with improvised response. Rourke abandoned technique entirely, his movements becoming pure reaction, pure presence. Thrak's eyes widened. The human was fighting the way humans hunted, not with prepared strategy, but with relentless adaptation, learning from every exchange, updating responses in real time. The next exchange happened too fast to track. Blades blurred, bodies moved, and when the moment crystallized, Thrak's practice blade was spinning through the air. 12 down. The arena erupted in chaos. 50,000 voices creating a sound like the birth of stars. Pralat Sorn's voice cut through the noise. The contest is concluded. Private James Rourke of Earth has successfully disarmed 12 opponents. The terms are satisfied. Humanity has demonstrated worthiness through capability, adaptability, and honor. The Council recognizes Earth's petition for membership. Humanity shall be granted full status with all attendant rights and protections. Webb felt his knees weaken with relief. They had won. The victory celebration lasted 3 hours before Ambassador Webb quietly excused himself. Something felt wrong. He'd spent enough years in diplomatic circles to recognize the difference between genuine congratulations and calculated courtesy. Most of the council delegates who had congratulated him wore the second expression. He found Colonel Hayes on an observation deck, staring at stars. "You feel it too," she said without turning. "We won too decisively," Webb replied. Rourke made it look easy. That wasn't supposed to happen. The contest was designed to humble us, to show humanity our place. Instead, one human with a stick demonstrated that our species can analyze and overcome challenges that have stopped others for millennia. Hayes pulled up a datapad. Intelligence reports are coming in. 6 delegations requested private audiences immediately after the contest. Another 8 filed motions for closed sessions. About what? The transcripts are sealed, but the pattern is clear. They're discussing the human problem. Webb felt cold dread. We just earned membership. They can't revoke it based on fear. They don't need to revoke it. They just need to redefine what membership means for species deemed potentially destabilizing. Hayes showed him the data. There's precedent. The Zorathian protocols from 800 years ago. When the Zorathians demonstrated advanced weapons technology, a council didn't exclude them. They just implemented protective measures that restricted Zorathian expansion, monitored their research, and required council approval for any significant development. They want to cage us. Membership in name only, with restrictions that prevent us from growing. Exactly. And a legal framework exists. All they need is a council vote declaring humanity a species requiring developmental oversight. Webb's mind raced. We need allies. Which delegations voted in our favor? Hayes pulled up voting records. 12 voted for full membership without restrictions. 23 voted against. 12 abstained. We won because Prelate Sorn cast the deciding vote, citing the contest results. So we have 12 potential allies. Webb studied the names. The Vortian delegation voted for us. Surprising, given how decisively Rourke defeated their duelist. I talked with Crystal and Singer after the contest. They said that in 6,000 years of studying the blade, they had never been disarmed so efficiently. It forced them to reconsider fundamental assumptions. They see humans as potential teachers, not threats. Who are our biggest opponents? The Voss Dominion, unsurprisingly. Counselor Kathara has been vocal about premature elevation of dangerous species. The Korthan Empire abstained, interesting given war leader Thrak's performance. And the Draxian Collective voted against us, though we're not sure why. Webb made a decision. Set up meetings with the 12 who voted for us. I want to understand their motivations. Also arrange a private meeting with Prelate Sorn. Before Hayes could respond, the alarm activated. A priority communication from an unexpected source. War Leader Thrak's massive form appeared holographically. Ambassador Webb, forgive the intrusion. I need to speak with you and Private Rourke immediately. It concerns urgent importance to both our species. 10 minutes later, they met in a conference chamber. Thrak waited with another Korthan, an elderly female whose scaled skin bore countless battle scars. This is High Commander Dresh, Thrak introduced. She commands our strategic council and advises our Emperor on galactic security. Dresh studied Rourke with predator intensity. Then, surprisingly, she bowed. Private Rourke, you have my respect. In 300 years, I have never seen Thrak defeated in single combat. That you did so with honor speaks well of your species. Thank you, Commander, Rourke replied, returning the bow. Dresh's expression hardened. Which is why I'm here to warn you. There is a faction within the Council that views humanity's demonstrated capabilities as an existential threat. They are moving to implement restrictions before you can develop your full potential. Webb stepped forward. The Zorathian protocols. We know. The protocols are merely the legal mechanism, Thrak said. The real danger is more immediate. The Voss Dominion has proposed a security assessment of Earth's military capabilities. If approved, it would authorize Council forces to conduct inspections of your homeworld, including unrestricted access to military installations, research facilities, and governmental records. Hayes's expression went cold. That's espionage wrapped in diplomatic courtesy. They'll map our defenses, identify weaknesses, compile a complete intelligence profile. Precisely, Dresh confirmed. And if Earth refuses the assessment, the Voss will claim you're hiding dangerous capabilities, which justifies the restrictions you're trying to avoid. It's a trap with no obvious exit. Webb's mind worked through implications. When is the vote? 2 cycles from now, Thrak said. The Voss are using humanity's contest victory as evidence. They're arguing that any species capable of such rapid adaptation must possess hidden military capabilities, requiring Council oversight. They're punishing us for winning, Rourke observed quietly. We were supposed to lose. Our victory disrupted their assumptions about humanity's place. More than that, Dresch said. Your victory revealed something terrifying. You demonstrated that advanced capabilities don't require millennia of development. Human adaptability means your species could achieve in decades what takes others centuries. That unpredictability threatens the established order. Webb leaned against the table. High Commander, why are you helping us? The Korthan Empire abstained from the membership vote. Dresch's scarred face twisted into something like a smile. Because I am old enough to remember when the Korthan Empire was young and aggressive, when other species feared our expansion. The Council of that era could have crushed us under restrictions. Instead, they gave us opportunity to grow, to prove ourselves as responsible members of galactic civilization. She gestured to Thrak. War Leader Thrak's assessment has convinced me that humanity deserves the same opportunity. You have potential to become either valuable allies or dangerous enemies. The Council's response now will determine which path you take. What do you suggest? You need to demonstrate that humanity understands restraint as well as capability, Dresch said. The contest proved you can fight. Now you must prove you know when not to fight. But you also cannot appear weak. It's a difficult balance. Hayes pulled up a tactical display. The security assessment is scheduled whether we consent or not. If we refuse, Council forces will consider it justification for escalation. If we accept, we give them everything they need to neutralize us. Rourke, who had been silent, suddenly spoke. What if we offered something they're not expecting? Everyone turned to look at him. The contest worked because I understood what each opponent assumed. The Voss Dominion assumes Earth will either submit to the assessment or refuse it. What if we do neither? Webb raised an eyebrow. I'm listening. What if Earth offers to conduct a joint security assessment with multiple Council species, including the Voss? Not as subjects being inspected, but as partners working together to establish baseline standards for new member species. We turn their trap into an opportunity for collaboration. Hayes considered this. It maintains our dignity while addressing their stated security concerns. And by making it a joint project with multiple species, we prevent any single faction from controlling the narrative. It also sets precedent, Thrak added thoughtfully. Future species seeking membership could follow the same process. Humanity wouldn't be singled out as a special threat. Dresch nodded slowly. The political elegance is considerable. The Voss can't refuse without admitting their real goal is control rather than security. And if they participate, they'll be working alongside other Council species who might not share their hostile agenda. Webb felt hope kindle. We'd need to move quickly. Which species would most likely participate in good faith? The Vortian delegation, Hayes suggested. They voted for us, and their duelist already sees value in human perspectives. The Quellan precognitives, Rourke added. They're motivated by long-term stability rather than short-term power. Thrak glanced at Dresch, who gave a subtle nod. The Korthan Empire would participate. Our abstention was not indifference, but caution. We wanted to observe before committing. Your proposed approach demonstrates the diplomatic sophistication that merits our support. Webb stood straighter. Then we have our strategy. I'll draft the proposal tonight and present it to the Council tomorrow. Dresch rose, her scarred frame impressive despite her age. Ambassador, final advice. The Council respects strength, but it fears unpredictability. Your species' rapid adaptation is both your greatest asset and your most dangerous liability. Use it wisely. After the Korthan departed, Webb, Hayes, and Rourke remained. Private, Webb said. That was exceptional strategic thinking. Where did you learn to approach problems that way? Rourke shrugged. Logistics is about finding elegant solutions to complex resource allocation. This felt similar. We have limited resources and a narrow window. The question was how to allocate our position to maximum strategic advantage. They worked through the night, crafting language that was simultaneously firm and cooperative. Strong and diplomatic. By morning, they had a document that reframed the entire debate. Rather than humanity being assessed, all parties would jointly develop assessment protocols serving everyone's interests. Webb presented it in an emergency council session, with ambassadors from the Vortian, Quellan, and Corthan delegations standing beside him. Counselor Catharis Hood flared in immediate objection. This is not what the vast Dominion proposed. We called for assessment of humanity's capabilities, not a collaborative review process. And we're offering exactly that, Webb replied calmly. Assessment of our capabilities, conducted jointly with council representatives, who can verify our transparency while ensuring the process respects our sovereignty as full members. Unless the council believes new members don't deserve the same protections as established species? The trap was elegant. Cathara couldn't argue against sovereignty without undermining the entire council framework. Prelate Sorn's voice resonated. The human proposal has merit. It addresses security concerns while maintaining the integrity of membership status. I see no reason to reject an approach that promotes collaboration over confrontation. The vote was close, but the proposal passed. Earth would undergo security assessment, but as partners in developing new protocols, not subjects being inspected. As delegates filed out, Thrak approached Rourke. You changed the game again, human. The contest was combat, but this was strategy. You demonstrated that your species understands both. We're learning. Every interaction teaches us more. That is what frightens them, Thrak said quietly. You learn too quickly. In the time it took to convene this session, you shifted from defensive positioning to offensive diplomacy. Most species would have taken weeks. Rourke considered this. Is that a warning? An observation? And a request? I asked to train with you to learn your combat methods. But I realize now I should learn how your species thinks. The blade techniques are impressive, but the mind behind them is the real weapon. They walked together toward the training facilities, discussing tactical philosophy and strategic thinking. Behind them, Webb and Hayes watched. We bought ourselves time, Hayes said. But Eventu. A lie, the galaxy will have to decide whether they want us as allies or whether we're too unpredictable to trust. Webb nodded. Then we'd better make sure that when that decision comes, we've built enough relationships that the choice is obvious. But neither knew that in the darkest corners of the station, other meetings were taking place. Meetings between species who saw humanity's demonstrated capabilities, not as an opportunity, but as a threat requiring immediate action. The contest had been won with a practice blade. The coming conflict would require every weapon humanity could forge. Real war was just beginning. 3 weeks after the security assessment vote, Ambassador Marcus Webb stood in his quarters reviewing diplomatic cables from Earth when the priority alert activated. Multiple simultaneous reports from different sources, all flagged with maximum urgency. He opened the first message and felt his blood turn to ice. Colonel Hayes to my quarters immediately. She arrived within 2 minutes, already reviewing the same intelligence. 6 frontier colonies. Simultaneous attacks. No warnings, no declarations, no political justification. Just coordinated strikes against civilian populations. Webb pulled up damage reports. Mining station on Tau Ceti, completely destroyed. Agricultural settlement on Kepler 400 dead. Research outpost on Proxima Centauri. Survivors in emergency shelters with failing life support. Who? He asked, though part of him already knew. The signatures match Draxian collective military vessels. But there's more. Intelligence intercepts suggest the Voss Dominion provided targeting data, and the Mordane Confederation offered logistical support. This wasn't rogue action. This was coordinated by multiple council species. Webb sat down heavily. They're forcing our hand. Attack human colonies, make it look like war, then claim we're too dangerous when we respond. It's worse. Hayes showed him additional intelligence. The attacks were surgical. Minimal military value, maximum civilian casualties, strategically positioned to look like we're being tested. If Earth doesn't respond, we appear weak. If we do respond, we're the aggressive newcomers who can't be trusted with military force. Where's Rourke? Training facility with War Leader Thrak. I've already sent for him. When Rourke arrived, he took one look at their expressions and understood. How bad? Webb showed him the reports. Rourke's face remained calm, but his eyes went cold in a way the ambassador had never seen. These aren't military targets. These are farmers, miners, scientists. Civilians who never threatened anyone. Rourke's voice was quiet, but dangerous. They're trying to provoke Earth into a response that justifies their fear of us. Exactly, Webb said. And it's working. Earth's military is mobilizing. The Security Council is meeting in emergency session. They're demanding authorization to strike back at the Draxian Collective. Which is what our opponents want, Hayes said. They've created a situation where humanity's natural response to aggression becomes evidence that we're too dangerous. Rourke was silent for a long moment. What if we don't give them what they expect? Webb recognized that tone. What are you thinking? They expect either submission or aggression. What if we respond with precision? Explain. The attacks were coordinated by multiple species, but executed by the Draxians. That means someone gave orders, someone planned logistics, someone provided ships and soldiers. Those are different organizations, different command structures, different vulnerabilities. Rourke pulled up a tactical display. If Earth retaliates militarily against the Draxians, we're doing exactly what they want. But what if instead we expose the conspiracy? Show the Council that their own members violated the laws they're supposed to uphold, that they attacked civilians specifically to manipulate Council politics. Webb felt hope kindle. We'd need proof. Intelligence intercepts won't be enough. Council law requires direct evidence of coordination. Then we get direct evidence, Hayes said, her expression hardening. We have assets. If the Draxians, Voss, and Mordane are working together, there will be communication trails, financial transactions, logistical records. And if we can prove it, Rourke continued, we shift the entire narrative. Instead of humanity being the aggressive newcomer, we become the victim of a conspiracy by established powers, trying to maintain dominance through illegal attacks on civilians. Webb stood, pacing. It's risky. If we accuse council members of conspiracy without ironclad proof, we alienate potential allies. But if we succeed, we demonstrate that humanity understands justice over vengeance, law over retribution. Hayes was already working through logistics. I'll coordinate with Earth intelligence. We need to move fast. The longer we wait to respond, the weaker we appear. Our opponents will use that to pressure the Council for immediate action against humanity. How long do we have? Earth's Security Council is demanding authorization for military strikes within 48 hours. If we can't provide an alternative approach by then, we'll be at war with the Draxian Collective, and probably half the Council besides. Webb made his decision. Colonel, coordinate intelligence gathering with Earth Command. Private Rourke, reach out to War Leader Thrak. The Korthan Empire has extensive intelligence networks. If there's evidence of this conspiracy, they might have access to it. Ambassador, Rourke said carefully, Asking the Corthan to spy on other council members is asking them to risk their position. That's not a small request. I know. Bethrak told you he wanted to learn how humanity thinks. This is our thinking. When attacked, we don't just strike back. We understand the attack, expose its origins, and use truth as our weapon. If the Corthan Empire wants to truly understand us, this is the test. Rourke nodded and left immediately. The next 36 hours became a blur of covert operations and diplomatic maneuvering. Earth Intelligence Services worked with Corthan assets to track communication patterns between the three conspirator species. Financial analysts traced resource movements suggesting coordination. Military specialists analyzed attack patterns and identified logistical impossibilities that proved outside support. War leader Thrak proved instrumental. He provided access to Corthan surveillance data, showing encrypted communications between the three species in the weeks before the attacks. High Commander Dresch personally authorized the intelligence sharing, telling Webb privately that the Corthan Empire did not approve of attacking civilians to manipulate politics. But proof of communication wasn't enough. They needed evidence of direct coordination, of orders given and received, of the conspiracy's actual structure 20 hours before Earth's deadline. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Crystalline singer of Seventh Harmonies, the Vortian duelist Rourke had defeated. Requested an urgent meeting. Webb, Hayes, and Rourke met the Vortian in a secure chamber. The crystalline being's form flickered with colors suggesting distress. "I come at great risk," Crystalline Singer began, "but I cannot remain silent when honor demands truth. There are members of my delegation who participated in planning the attacks on your colonies." Webb leaned forward. "Can you provide evidence?" "I can provide testimony and access to internal Vortian communications. I am a duelist, not a politician, but my position grants access to certain diplomatic channels. When I learned of the conspiracy, I copied what I could. The Vortian produced a data crystal containing encrypted files, meeting transcripts, logistical planning documents, and most damning of all, explicit orders from high-ranking Voss officials coordinating with their Draxian and Mordane counterparts. "Why are you doing this?" Rourke asked gently. Crystalline Singer's form pulsed with deep conviction. "Because you defeated me with honor, Private Rourke. You could have humiliated me, made my defeat a spectacle. Instead, you treated me with respect and genuinely sought to learn from our encounter. That showed me something about humanity that the fearmongers in my delegation refused to see." The Vortian's next words carried weight. "A species capable of such honor does not deserve to be manipulated into war through the murder of their civilians. This conspiracy violates everything the Council is supposed to represent." Hayes began processing the data crystal. "This is it. This is everything we need. Orders, timelines, coordination protocols. With this and the Corthan intelligence, we can prove the conspiracy beyond any doubt." Webb felt pieces align. "We present this to the Council in emergency session. Make the evidence public. Force them to choose between supporting their own laws or protecting the conspirators. Earth's deadline is in 19 hours. Hayes reminded him. "Then we move now." Webb drafted the emergency petition to Prelate Soren, requesting immediate Council convocation based on evidence of grave violations of Council law. He attached the full intelligence package, making it impossible to ignore or dismiss. The Council convened in emergency session 8 hours later. The judgment chamber was packed, delegates standing in galleries that would normally remain empty. The attack on human colonies had become the galaxy's primary concern. Webb stood in the defendant's circle once again, but this time he wasn't defending. He was accusing. "Members of the Galactic Council," he began, his voice carrying clearly through the vast space. 3 weeks ago, 6 human colonies were attacked without warning or provocation. 400 civilians were killed. These attacks violated every principle of Council law regarding aggression against member species. Counselor Cathara's hood flared. Ambassador Webb, everyone knows the Draxian Collective was responsible for those attacks. If you're here to demand justice against them, simply say so. I'm here to demand justice against everyone responsible, Webb replied. He activated the holographic displays, which includes members of the Vos Dominion and the Mordain Confederation who planned, coordinated, and supported these attacks. The chamber erupted in shocked discussion. Webb continued over the noise. We have communication records showing coordination between Draxian Military Command, Vos Intelligence Services, and Mordain Logistical Support. We have financial transactions proving the Vos provided funding for the operation. We have tactical planning documents showing the attacks were designed specifically to provoke a military response from Earth. That would justify implementing restrictions on humanity. He displayed the evidence systematically. Communication transcripts appeared in the air, translated into every Council language simultaneously. Financial records showed the flow of resources between the 3 conspirator species. Tactical documents revealed the calculated nature of the attacks, how targets were chosen specifically for their psychological impact rather than military value. This was not an act of war, Webb declared. This was a conspiracy to manipulate Council politics through the murder of civilians. The conspirators violated Council law, the laws of war, and basic principles of civilized conduct. And they did it to maintain their own power by preventing humanity from developing our full potential as Council members. Cathara rose, her hood fully extended. These allegations are outrageous. You accuse the Vos Dominion based on intelligence that could easily be fabricated. Then explain the source, Webb said calmly. This evidence was provided by Crystalline Singer of Seventh Harmonies, a member of your own delegation who could not in good conscience remain silent about what their government had done. The Vortian duelist stepped forward from the galleries, their crystalline form pulsing with determined colors. Ambassador Webb speaks truth. I provided the evidence because honor demanded it. The Vos Dominion has shamed itself with these actions. The chamber fell into shocked silence. A member of the Vos delegation, publicly confirming the conspiracy, changed everything. Prelate. Soren's voice resonated with authority. These are grave accusations requiring immediate investigation. The Council will form a tribunal to examine the evidence and determine appropriate responses. With respect, Prelate, Webb said, Earth cannot wait for a tribunal. It might take cycles to reach conclusions. Our people are dead. Our colonies are destroyed. And the species responsible are sitting in this chamber, protected by their Council positions. What do you propose, Ambassador? Webb looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of delegates from hundreds of worlds. I propose that humanity demonstrates something the galaxy seems to have forgotten. That justice matters more than politics. That laws apply to everyone, not just the weak. That civilization means holding ourselves accountable to principles we claim to uphold. He paused, letting his words sink in. Earth will not retaliate militarily against the Draxian Collective or any other species. We will not become the threat you fear. But we demand that Council law be enforced, that the conspirators face consequences, that civilian populations everywhere know they are protected by more than the goodwill of powerful species. And if the Council fails to enforce its own laws? Cathara challenged. Webb's expression hardened. Then humanity will remember that the Galactic Council is not a body of justice, but a political arrangement. And we will act accordingly in all future dealings. We will remain members, but we will never again trust Council authority or accept Council judgment on matters affecting our species. The threat was clear. Either the Council enforced its laws equally, or humanity would become a member that recognized no authority beyond its own interests. Prelate Soren's crystalline form pulsed with colors suggesting deep thought. The human makes a valid point. If council law cannot protect member species from conspiracy and murder, then what purpose does this body serve? Over the next 3 hours, the tribunal was formed and evidence was reviewed. The Korthan Empire's intelligence confirmed the conspiracy. Multiple species came forward with additional evidence they had been reluctant to share. By the end of the session, the verdict was clear. The Draxian Collective, Vos Dominion, and Mardane Confederation had conspired to attack human colonies to manipulate council politics. High-ranking officials from all 3 species were stripped of their positions. Reparations were ordered, and most significantly, new protocols were established for holding council members accountable for violations of galactic law. As the session concluded, War Leader Thrak approached Webb and Rourke. "You did it again," Thrak said quietly. "Changed the game. The council expected either submission or military retaliation. You gave them justice instead. You forced us to live up to our own principles." "We're still learning how the galaxy works," Rourke replied. "But some principles are universal. Justice, accountability, the idea that laws should protect everyone equally." Thrak nodded slowly. "Humanity has taught the Council an important lesson today. That being new to galactic civilization doesn't mean being naive about how power works. You understood the political trap, found the evidence to expose it, and forced change through legitimate processes." He looked at both of them seriously. "You have proven that humanity belongs among the stars. Not because you're strong, though you are. Not because you're adaptable, though you are. But because you understand what civilization actually means. Laws that apply to everyone. Justice that protects the weak from the powerful. Accountability for those who abuse their positions. Will it last?" Webb asked. "That depends on humanity," Thrak said. "You have forced the Council to remember its principles. Whether it continues to uphold them will depend partly on whether species like yours continue to demand it." As they walked from the judgment chamber, Rourke looked back at the empty space where he had stood with a practice blade weeks ago. "It started with a stick," he said quietly. "A piece of wood and a contest to prove we belonged. Now it's about something bigger. About whether the galaxy can be a place where justice matters more than power." Webb nodded. "The contest was about proving we could fight. This was about proving we know when not to fight. Both were necessary. What happens now?" Hayes asked, joining them. "Now we build," Webb said. "We've earned our place. We've proven our worth. The galaxy knows humanity can adapt, can fight, and demand justice. Now we show them what we can create, the technologies we can develop, the partnerships we can form, the contributions we can make to galactic civilization." They walked toward the human delegation quarters, past aliens who looked at them differently now. Not with contempt or fear, but with a mixture of respect and cautious curiosity. Humanity had proven itself in combat, in diplomacy, and in demanding accountability from power. But as Webb had said, that was just the beginning. The real work of building humanity's future among the stars was just starting. And they would face it the way humans had always faced impossible challenges, with intelligence, adaptability, and the absolute refusal to accept that any obstacle was truly insurmountable. They gave the human a practice blade. He used it to disarm an entire squad, and in doing so, declared that humanity would never be caged, never be controlled, never be anything less than equal partners in the galactic community. The war they had avoided was over before it began. Not through superior force, but through superior understanding of what actually mattered. Not just survival, but justice. Not just power, but principle. And the galaxy would never be quite the same, We try Claude can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.